How to make try-hard gumbo. Now, this is just a dry run video. Yeah, I'm not even going to be making the gumbo this time, but I will talk all the way through it. And let's go. All right, so first things first, time for the roux. Just any oil usually works. I just use extra virgin olive oil. They say that higher cooking temperature oils are better, but this works fine for me. It is 3/4 cup of oil, 3/4 cup of flour. You put the oil in first. I usually go to about 6, pretty close to high to start. Get the oil in there. As long as it takes you to put the flour into the measuring cup if you're not doing them separately, that's how long you wait. You just want it a little warm, but you don't want it hot because it'll sizzle up and go crazy. Stir it. Don't stop stirring it ever. You just use really good motions. Make sure you get everything off the surface all the time. And as soon as you smell a nutty smell, you turn it down and it'll start to look kind of like peanut butter. You turn it down to medium low, 3 or 4 on this stove. And somewhere in between peanut butter and chocolate, take it off heat, put it into a bowl and just set it off to the side. While you're doing this at the same time, you can go ahead, put this to 400. It doesn't really have to preheat. Put about a half cup or so of flour into a cookie sheet, just something that you can fork around in, and you just let that go for like the first hour or so of the cooking process. And what I usually do is, as I'm cooking, I just take it out every once in a while and fork through it. And if it's dark, if there are parts that are dark enough, then I will take a spoon and I'll just add a little bit into the gumbo in it. And that's really to taste. It just thickens it up as you go. But no matter what, if you're putting flour in, it needs at least 2 hours to cook. You want to cook the flour all the way. So once you make the roux, you're going to do 1 full stalk of celery. I usually just make sure I get the roux right first. It'll still be warm by the time you get going. 1 full stalk of celery, that means a full bag of celery. It's a lot of celery. Chop it into little bits, put it in, and put the top on it. Probably just medium heat. With pretty much everything that you put on the skillet, I usually put a little bit of oil in because it just makes it cook through better. And you will be skimming off the oil on the top. Some people say that you shouldn't skim the oil off or whatever, the fat that comes up. I think you use the oil to cook things properly, and then you take the oil off the top at the end. It actually also helps with the boiling process. When it's boiling over and it's simmering, it actually keeps the heat in, but you don't need it at the end. It's just something that you have to stir in constantly, and it's just not needed. And we're gonna end up using more than you would actually want. Let it go for a while. Start on your bell pepper. Chop that up into small bits. Then you'll take the celery, stir it up. When it starts to look a little clear and you can start to smell it, you just go ahead and put it into your pot. And at this point, you will turn your pot on to like a 2. And then you repeat that process for the bell pepper. And as you have the bell pepper steaming in a little bit of oil, you cut up the onion. I usually do the onion last because it is very spicy on the eyes. So cut up the onion, do the same thing, put it in. Then once you have all 3 of those, you can do the garlic. I find some point during the cooking process to just do the garlic later. You can do it right then and there. You can do freshly chopped garlic. I use a garlic press. It's fast. About a tablespoon worth, 3 to 5 cloves. Once all those are in, they're starting to get a little warm in this pot. That's when you put the roux in. You just pour it in. You'll have to spoon it out because it's thick. And you just let it all go in there. And then you turn this up to about half or so. And you start mixing it all in together. At that point, you will start adding your chicken broth as you go, just a little bit at a time, just to make sure that there's moisture in there. You'll get plenty of steam, and that's when you start to put in the Old Bay. I usually put in, it's gonna end up being a total of 4 tablespoons, but you put in 3 tablespoons to start, and the 4th tablespoon goes on the chicken as you're cooking it. So for the spices, it's gonna go 3 to 5 cloves of garlic first. Oh, and with the garlic, if you're doing cloves of garlic, you do kind of wanna heat it up in the skillet a little bit, wake it up before you put it in is always good. Then you do the bouillon cubes as you're adding water, the 2 tablespoons of lemon juice pretty early on. You do the allspice pretty much after the Old Bay, the thyme after that, celery, salt, those can all go in at the same time. The black pepper, you kind of do to taste, you'll taste it. You can add paprika, you can add cayenne peppers, and you can add hot sauce to taste however you want to do it. The Worcestershire sauce, you probably add in last, you know, taste it, see how it does. I think it adds a nice little flair. Definitely doesn't hurt. Oh, and also when you're putting the chicken together, you can put some Worcestershire sauce in that because that's actually a meat sauce. The 3 bay leaves, when you add them in, you want to take them out before you put, like right before you put in the eggs. Some point after they've had some time to interact with the chicken. You definitely don't want to leave them in because they will overpower everything else. The amount of liquid that you end up putting in is 8 cups of chicken broth and 8 cups of water. So basically a gallon. You will do the last 4 cups of water last at the very end, and it will be cold water. So you'll end up putting in all 8 cups of broth and then 4 cups of water, and then you'll turn it up so it can get to a rolling boil. And while you do that, that's when it's time to cook up a couple things actually. You'll do the sausage first. You just cut it into the pepperonis and you put them all in and you let them sit, and you go like medium-high heat. Get some browning going on the top layer here, but you don't want to cook them fully. For one thing, they're fully cooked. For another thing, they're going to be in here for a long time, and that the flavor is going to be going both ways. You want to get them in nice and early in the process. Once the sausage is ready, you go ahead and put it in. You've been going for about 30 minutes by now. You might want to start looking at your dry roux and maybe adding a spoonful here and there, just as you go, just looking for some nice brown, unburnt flour, just a nice nutty brown. So with the chicken, I usually end up with breasts, but I hear that thighs are better. You get like thin sliced or something, and you cut them into fairly large chunks. The kind of chunks that you would just take and you would put side by side. You can do like 2 to 3 pieces. But what you'll do is you'll put them in a bowl, roll them up in the tablespoon of Old Bay and some salt and a healthy amount of pepper. And then you sear them. But with the chicken, you don't cook it all the way. You actually want it to still look raw on the inside. You want to sear it on the outside, raw on the inside, and you set that off. What you're going to do is for the last hour, you put the chicken in and it finishes, and then you raise the temperature up again. Once it gets to a boil, you want to lower it down to a simmer. And that's the last hour or so that you'll let it do that. At that point, to boil the eggs, you will get a nice ice bath ready. You put the eggs into a pot. You fill it up with water an inch above the eggs. You put in a little bit of salt because it helps the boil. Once they get to a boil, you see a rolling boil, you will turn the stove off if you have an iron stove. If you have like one of those induction stoves, you'll just turn it low because the iron stove will stay hot for a while, and then set a timer for like 6 to 8 minutes. Probably 6 is fine. Because what you're gonna do is you're gonna do a soft boil, and when it goes into the gumbo at the end, it'll finish cooking. Once the 6 minutes are up, you take it out immediately and you stop the cooking process by putting the eggs into the ice bath, and you let them cool off for 5 minutes or something, and then they're also easier to peel after that. Once the eggs are done, I usually just pick them out, deshell them. You have a lot of time while the gumbo's going, so it's nice to just work on this stuff as you're waiting. Eggs are going to go in pretty much last, like maybe 30 minutes or even right before. And the okra also goes in last. And the way I've had to do it, sometimes I get the mixed can of okra, and then I have to pick out corn and stuff, which I don't really recommend that because they put so little okra in it, but sometimes that's all you can do. It's kind of, it's hard to find okra, and as much as I hate to say it, it is not completely required. With the rice, 2 cups of rice, 3 cups of water. It's on the back of the bag. But get the water to a boil, put the rice in, let it get to a boil again, turn the heat down to simmer, 15 minutes exactly, take it off the heat, leave the top on, don't take the top off, let it sit for exactly 10 minutes, and then open it and fluff it. And you can put salt and pepper in it as you go. When you have about an hour to go, that's when the chicken goes in. Should be a total cooking time of about 3 hours. By now, you should have put in however much of this flour you want. You heat up, you know, like a half cup. You put like 4, maybe 5 spoonfuls. Really, you put them in slowly and stir it around and give it some time, and just see if it's a thickness that you like, because you want it kind of thick. But you don't want to put too much in there, and however much you put in there, you want to make sure that you do it pretty much 2 hours before you're said and done. For the last step, take 4 cups of cold water and pour it in, and it will shock everything and kind of wake it up just a little more at the end, and that completes the amount of liquid that you'll want in your gumbo. Any kind of brown foam or oil layer you will then skim off, and it's ready to serve. Go ahead and give this a try if you want. If you have any questions or comments, or if you think I'm doing something absolutely wrong, you can let me know in the comments. Do not subscribe. I will make a real video for this eventually. That's it. Thanks.